The Retention Center allows you to track at-risk students and email them. It is already set up and fully configured in new courses. You can access the Retention Center in two ways. From the Global Navigation menu, click these two arrows, and you're given a snapshot view of the Retention Center in each of your courses. You click the course on the left to see the Retention Center on the right for that course. To go to the full Retention Center for that course, click See Details or click any of the See More Details hyperlinks, and they all take you to the full Retention Center for that course. This is the full Retention Center for this course. You can also get to this full Retention Center from the control panel in the course by opening Evaluation and clicking Retention Center. The Retention Center has three parts: the risk table, students you are monitoring and other information you are monitoring, and your course activity, which gives instructors a snapshot view of their course activity and allows instructors to jump to selected areas of the course. The risk table shows only students who are at risk for one or more of the rules included in the risk table. The red bar displays an overview of the information that the risk table columns display. Clicking the red bar breaks down the risk table information into greater detail. For example, on the left-hand side, the blue bar shows that 4 students are at risk for missed deadlines. On the right-hand side, the gray bar, if you hover over it, shows that 4 students did not log in. To return to the red overview bar, click back to overview. The red dots indicate that a student has triggered the rule in the column where the red dot appears. Clicking a red dot gives you more detailed information about the student's risk. From here, you can monitor the student or notify the student by email by clicking these buttons. Clicking a student name displays the student's detailed Retention Center status. From here, you can monitor or email the student by clicking these buttons, or add a note that only you can see by clicking this hyperlink. To return to the full Retention Center, click Retention Center under Evaluation. These are the 4 default columns in the Retention Center. Click the column title to filter students from lowest to highest, or from highest to lowest risk for that rule. To view or alter criteria for default rules, to create new rules, and to exclude and delete rules, click Customize. Actions allows you to exclude or include a rule in the risk table. If you exclude a rule, it will not create alerts on the risk table, but will appear in other information where it will give you more subtle alerts. To exclude or include a rule, put a check mark next to the rule, hover over Actions, and click Include or Exclude. When you exclude a rule, No appears under Included in Risk Table on the Customize screen. Let's go to the full Retention Center. And you can see that this rule is not activated and will give you no alerts in the risk table. However, it does appear under other information you are monitoring, where it will give you more subtle alerts. To reactivate the rule's default criteria on the risk table, click Use Defaults. And the rule's default criteria are reactivated on the risk table. Let's return to Customize. Next to Actions is a Delete button. If you delete a default rule, it disappears from this list, but not from the risk table. Let's delete the first rule by putting a check mark next to it and clicking Delete. Notice that the rule disappears from the Customize screen, but if we return to the full Retention Center, that deleted rule is still part of the risk table. It simply will not give you alerts. Unlike an excluded rule, however, a deleted rule is not included in other information. To reactivate the default criteria for a deleted rule on the risk table, click Use Defaults. And the rule's default criteria are reactivated on the risk table, and you will receive alerts for this rule. Default rules and their default criteria cannot be permanently deleted. When you click Delete, they are actually hidden. Customized criteria and created rules, however, are permanently deleted. To view default criteria, to customize criteria for rules, or to create new rules, click Customize. To view and customize criteria for an existing rule, click the arrow to the right of the rule name. From this submenu, you can edit the rule, include or exclude the rule in the risk table, or delete the rule. Let's click Edit to view or edit the default criteria for this rule. Here you can change the name of the rule, include or exclude it from the risk table, and change the criteria for the rule. Let's modify the criteria for this rule. We'll change 1 week to 2, and then submit this altered rule. When you edit the default criteria for a rule, the customization screen identifies the rule as modified and saves a copy of the default criteria, which can be restored if you exclude the customized rule and then select Use Defaults on the risk table, like this. Put a check mark next to the modified rule, hover over Actions, and choose Exclude. We see No under Included in Risk Table, and we return to the full retention center. We can now restore the defaults for that rule by clicking Use Defaults. And on the risk table, this rule will give you alerts based on the default criteria. Let's return to Customize. And notice that we now have 5 rules because Blackboard saved the modified activity rule, which is not included in the risk table, and activated the default activity rule. If you exclude a modified or customized rule, as we just did, and later want to include that modified rule in the risk table, you must perform that action here in the Customize screen by selecting the modified rule and then selecting Include. We'll put a check mark next to the modified rule, hover over Actions, and click Include. If you delete a customized rule, the customized criteria is permanently deleted and the rule can be restored only with its default criteria. Let's delete this modified rule by putting a check mark next to it and clicking Delete. The customized rule and customized criteria are permanently deleted. In the Customize screen, you can also create new rules by hovering over Create Rule and selecting one of these 4 rule types and then defining the criteria for the rule. For example, you might want a rule that alerts you when students are high achievers. Let's select Grade Rule, give the rule a name. We won't include this rule in the risk table because high achieving students are not at risk. You should reserve the risk table for students who are at risk of failing the course. Remember, excluding a rule from the risk table puts the rule in other information so that you still receive alerts, just not in the risk table. We will exclude this from the risk table. Now we want to set the criteria for this rule. I want to monitor the student's final grade or course average. I want to use grade averages, and I want to know when the student's grade goes above 89%. In other words, when the student achieves an A. When you're finished, you click Submit. That rule now appears in the Customize screen, and No appears under Included in Risk Table. Let's return to the full retention center. And you can see that the rule we just created is not part of the risk table, but it does appear under other information you are monitoring, and you will get subtle alerts here. As a review, to delete and edit any rules, you must go to the Customize screen by clicking Customize. To delete a rule, put a check mark next to it here and click Delete. You cannot permanently delete default rules or their default criteria. However, if you modify a default rule and then delete it, you will delete the modified criteria, but not the rule. If you put a check mark next to a rule that you created, like the A student rule, and then click Delete, you will delete the entire rule and all of its criteria. To include or exclude a rule from the risk table, put a check mark next to the rule, hover over Actions, and choose Include or Exclude. You can also click the arrow to the right of the rule, choose Include or Exclude, and you can also edit and delete rules from this submenu. Let's return to the Full Retention Center. When you email students from the Retention Center by clicking a risk factor and then choosing Notify, or by clicking the student's name and choosing Notify, that email becomes a permanent part of the Retention Center. Also, notice that the email has a predefined message in it that you can alter or replace. Let's submit this so that we can send the email to the student. We're returned to the student's Full Retention Center status, and under Notification History, we see every communication that we have sent to the student throughout the entire semester, and these emails are permanent parts of the Retention Center. Let's return to the Full Retention Center. If you want to monitor a student, click a risk factor and choose Monitor, or click the student's name and click Monitor. Then return to the Full Retention Center, and all students that you are monitoring will appear here under Students You Are Monitoring. This area gives you a snapshot view of students to whom you want to pay special attention. To stop monitoring a student, you simply click the yellow star.